Hello, everybody, and welcome to Going Over. I'm Zack Primetime Reeb, your local neighborhood coach, friendly trainer, promoter, and I'm joined alongside the 7-foot wrecking ball, Paul Isadora. Paul, this is it. This is the first one.
That's it, man. Pretty excited. I feel like this has been so long in the making, right? We've been talking about this for months. We've been exchanging clips of wrestling, and I just feel like we wanna make everything better. Um, you know, I don't know about yourself, but I feel like I'm 49 now, so kind of past the prime a little bit. So I think my opportunity to go to get a chance at the big leagues is probably you know in the rearview mirror, and hopefully we can do something to help the next wave of guys who want to make it. So I think we talked about how we wanted to just get this thing started. First episode, kind of start from the very beginning, right? Like, and the question is, how do you get into the professional wrestling business? Like, how do you get started? So, like, what's step one?
Step one is just like you would find some tacos on the internet. Step one is locating your nearest professional wrestling training facility. And back in the day, you used to have to do a lot more research because back in the day, there wasn't as many professional wrestling training schools. And I know we came down there with you this last weekend, and you had 5 or 6 new guys that had come out just to get some time in a couple hours before the training started. So I don't know. I think that's what, as a trainer, as a coach, I think that's what we all thoroughly enjoy is seeing new people show up and seeing what they got. You know what I mean, Paul?
Of course, and I think if we really go back, like the things that I heard when I first got into the business was it was almost invitation only, right? It was just one of those things. Like you couldn't just walk into the building and say I want to be a pro wrestler. It had to be like somebody sees you in the gym or someone sees you out and goes, "Hey, you ever thought about getting in the pro wrestling business?" And in many cases, it might have been an opportunity for them to try to swindle you out of some cash, right? uh, Try to get you to come and try it out, and then take your money and run you off, right? So, like, what's changed?
Well, I mean, we know the pro wrestling school is it's kind of a scam. You know what I mean? You're going in, you're giving your money. You either got some talent, you can either talk, you can either act a little bit, got some athleticism, a little amateur background, or you don't. I mean, over time, you can really you can just drive somebody's dick in the dirt all day long, and they can get better and build their confidence off that. But uh, man, I think what's really changed is just the amount of high level training facilities and quality instructors that are out there because anybody can just get a building. They can put it in their yard, they can put it in their garage. They don't even need their roof high enough. You can grab some low boys nowadays. So I just think the quality of professional wrestling training has gone down. It's quicker, it's easier to get through the process of training. The quality of instructor has gone down. And nowadays, there's just so many places you can go to where before you had to find places and you had to work around the independent circuit to get noticed, get in the magazines, get some booking somewhere else to better yourself. And nowadays, I think it's just with social media and everything out there now, they say quality over quantity, and I don't think that really matters anymore. It's just the access for an athlete, even if he doesn't want to be a professional wrestler, to get into pro wrestling, to get right into the front door into the eyes of the WWE is just very easy. Actually, it's just a quick email away. If you go to the website, people always ask me all the time, well, how do I get extra work? Well, I mean, it's just like a job application now. You can go to www.com and fill out a job application.
Right, exactly. So it's definitely not as hard as it used to be, right? It was invitation only, and then I think probably, I feel like when I broke in, it was I just stumbled across it. It was just complete coincidence, and then I think it was I was very naive to the fact that, hey, there's a wrestling school in Reno, and then you just assume, right, that there's, oh well, there must be a wrestling school in every town, and then come to find out, guys are traveling sometimes hours uh, to get to a training session, right? So I mean, you kind of said like it's like looking for tacos, right? You're just going to look it up on the internet. You're going to find the closest promotion to your house, and then you're going to go check it out, right? So, with that being said, like how do you know when you go to the closest training school to your house? How do you know if this is legit? Like, how do we find out? Is it a good school? Is it a bad school? How do we go about finding those things out?
Oh, and you know, brother, when you show up, that's you don't. That's the problem. You could do all your research that you want online, but it's really just the community's so small. And I know we've talked about it before. The community of, especially like NorCal wrestling, the community's so small, and it's so easy to get access to other promotions. Hell, it's easy to get to a venue now. You just punch in the date and your fucking phone just sends you right to them. There's no more fun in the mystery of getting to a show, printing out the map quest and trying to find it. Now we have our phones to go, in 2.5 miles, take exit 273. So like any dipshit can navigate himself to a show. Half the battle back in the day was, hey, no, 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 you missed the turn, man. Oh, we got to turn around. Are we in the right location? So I think when you show up, so I don't get off topic a little bit because I will ramble about some dumb shit. When you show up there, you don't know at first, and you have no clue what people are doing. Every place that trains somebody has a different regimen, and I mean, really, once you get past the progressional and the basics and fundamentals, it's a free ball game at that point, man. So I think
Right.
you're just really looking to get out there, and you're gonna see other promotions, you're gonna see other wrestlers, you're gonna see guys, and the level of communication and fellowship in this thing now is just bigger than it's ever been. What about you?
Right. I mean, I guess for me, it's just kind of all the same things. Like you can find these places all over the place. Jump on the internet, you're going to find 100 training schools in your state. A lot of times, I think maybe I'm in Nevada, so maybe there's less than that. But I feel like just the next state over in California, there's probably got to be a dozen, maybe just in Northern California. So. Talk about how you got into the pro wrestling business. So, I mean, obviously, you started decades ago, and it wasn't as easy as just, it was dial up internet, right? So it wasn't like you're going to get these super fast answers like you're looking for a pro wrestling school. So, how was it for you? How did you get in? How did you find the right spot?
It was definitely dial up, and for me, I had a senior project at Marysville High School, and I had to write a 10-page paper. I had to do a 10-minute speech. This was to graduate, and I rented a ring from Johnny Flores Boxing and Master Built Boxing and Wrestling rings. I way overpaid back in the day. Johnny came down with a couple young boys. They set it up in the Lesta Huber Gymnasium at Marysville High School. And we put on a show, and it was pretty successful. And then my dad was like, hey man, you got to go get a job anyways, because I was going to go to All Pro Wrestling. I had already been in contact with Roland and the gang, and he said, how about we build you a ring and you can just get your own trainer. And I had come up with Pro Championship Wrestling with James Haight as the name of this company we had started, and we had met through MySpace. We had met a group in Vacaville called VCW, Vacaville Championship Wrestling, and then we had met Rick Vandal, aka Rick Luxury, with Brawl, the barely regulated amateur wrestling league. And I went down and met Rick. We actually went to Antioch and Oakley on a Friday, Saturday night because they had Legends of Wrestling at both high schools, and they just happened to be that weekend. So I went with Rick, and he said, "Man, I got this guy. His name's Schizo, and he told me if I ever found a real ring, he'd train us." And I met Skitz that night, and we gave him the address, and he came. He came up to the 5-acre farm with no reception in La Marica, California, where Pop had us out there herding the cows and waking up early. And we kind of just started there, man. We got trained and we just started running. And a few years into that, I went down to Pro Wrestling Iron with Vinny and Mike. And then the next weekend, I went to APW with Roland and Gabe. And once I went there, the production and the professional value was just, they were running a smoother program. And I realized, hey, this is a company that is in need of some talent. And at the time, I had you know, Oliver John had come back, who trained my trainer, excuse me, and so I went down there with Ollie. I went down there with AJ Kirsch. I brought Brian Cage, Scotty Aboot, and we kind of went down there and filled out some much needed talent that company needed. And then you know, so for me, once I got going, it was never like, okay, I'm satisfied now that I'm wrestling and they say I'm a trained and ready to get out there and cut my teeth out there. For me, it's just always been about finding somebody with more knowledge or anybody with knowledge and just learning and learning and learning. So, I mean, that's one of the things that, me and you were sitting here talking on the phone and in person for like the last year. And I was like, dude, I've known you for a long time, but I was like, fuck, I like talking to Paul about wrestling, man. We like breaking this thing down and trying to make some sense and help people. So, yeah, well, I know we had built the Reno Wrestle Factory was actually called Coastal Pro Wrestling, and me and my dad had built Adam Luster and Brian Brigger. We had built them their first ring and took it down to them. So those guys were training with us for like 3 months. So the history of the Reno Wrestle Factory starts as Coastal Pro Wrestling. So I think everybody needs to hear about how you broke in this business with those
Right.
guys.
Right, and the other night we were talking about how everything is very much intertwined, right? So it's like, hey, you know this guy, and it's the they say 6 degrees of separation and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, I kind of stumbled into it after playing college basketball up here at University of Nevada, and then I went overseas and played overseas professionally for a few years, and then somebody that I had bumped into on MySpace. You mentioned MySpace. I bumped into him on a chat room or something about wrestling, and then kind of reconnected. Never knew who the person was really, and it was like, hey, we're training at this boxing gym. Come check it out. And I never got around to it. And then I was working with Corey Dayton, left his
Mhm.
email open. Somebody thought it would be a funny prank to send an email to everyone in the company from his email address saying he was wrestling for the world heavyweight title, and that's become one of those terms that I think all of us go, is it really the world title? Like where do you defend this thing, right? You normally just defend it in your own state. So but Corey was going to wrestle for the title. It's going to be a 3-way: Corey versus Luster versus Adam. And I'm sure a bunch of other people were laughing about it, but I was like, man, this is awesome, man. I'm gonna go check this out. Susanville, California. So I cruised up there, and Corey had been on the website and things like that. So I had looked at the profiles and see how big these guys are, and so I thought, oh, I'm a big guy. It's gonna be cool. But I go and I see Luster's listed at like I think 6'6" and 275 or something like that. And Malachi's listed at 6'5" and 280 or something. And I see these guys come out, and I'm sitting in a chair. So I'm like, wow, these guys are huge, man. These guys could kick my ass, no problem, right? And then you find out the reality of it, where I'm so much bigger than these guys. But I went and watched that show, and there was guys that are still around on that show. Mustafa was on that show. Big Ugly and Chupacabra, Flacco, all these guys were on that show. But I talked to Corey afterwards, and I go, man, how do I get into this, man? And he points out Brian. You said you guys built that ring for Brian and those guys, and I go and talk to Brian. This was on a Saturday, and then next Saturday I start training with Coastal Pro Wrestling. So so it was just a whirlwind. A couple weekends finding out about the show, going to the show, starting pro wrestling.
Then you're going, huh? You're
oh
going.
yeah, and then it's just been kind of a whirlwind for the last 20 something years. So
That's how it goes, though. You just you just jump right in.
right,
Like you said, you went to a show. You're like, fuck, this is cool. And then next thing you know, next weekend you're in the ring and you're
right,
starting out. And I think we get involved in that where we look at everything and we go, oh man, I was literally just thinking about becoming a professional wrestler. And then I went down and that's what I was saying earlier about the access to do it. And I mean, you look around and there's a select guys now from our generation of training, myself, there's Luster. Adam never really was into training guys. Adam Thornstowe, if people don't know who I'm talking about, he was more into when a guy was ready and out on the road. He became a good coach and a good mentor out there on the road. But Big Ugly. I always thought Boyce LeGrand would have made a very good wrestling trainer. I know Robert Thompson was a very good trainer. Oliver John, my coach Skits. I always felt with him that out of all the people that coached me, he was the guy who kept me motivated. He didn't let me get away with shit, man. So I feel like when you're training, you're looking for somebody that's going to, like I said earlier, run your dick in the dirt. You're looking for someone that's going to set up a regimen, and it doesn't have to be a certain regimen, but it's like, let's get in here and let's fucking work. If you want a social club, go join a social club. There's nothing that pisses me off more and drives me crazy than it could be at Primetime University. It could be when I come up there to you. It could be when I go to another place that has a training facility, with just people hanging out, not trying to log in their hours. It's like, what the fuck are we trying to do here? If you want to talk to each other, my dad used to say it to the kids during baseball. They'd be over here talking. He'd be like, get his number and call him at home. And it's like, no, that's the truth. Get the motherfucker's number and call him at home. Go out to eat, give him a kiss on the lips, whatever you want to do. But we get into these, these training environments where, God, everything nowadays, I see it in basketball all the time. I was just listening to Kevin Garnett talk, and he's like, man, none of these guys nowadays have that competitive fire and edge that we did. We were in each other's face, bumping around, pushing each other. We didn't even shake these guys' hands, whether we liked them or not. And I'm noticing that in the training. One thing, and I know you notice too, is there's a lot of prom photos going on. And it's not just in California, it's everywhere where guys are like, hey, look at us. We showed up to training. Let's all get in the ring and take a selfie prom photo of everybody that showed up to training. I don't see no ripped shirts. I don't see no sweat dripping off people. I don't see no baggy eye. I don't see people that look like they've been put through hell. And that's what this is, putting yourself through hell every fucking time you show up at that training facility. You're going to get injured? Yeah, you're going to get injured on the show for sure. That can happen. The risk of injuries are real. But most of your injuries are going to come during training because you don't know what you're doing yet. So throwing yourself backwards at that mat, that's not a fucking common thing. Nobody gets up in the morning and goes, I'm just going to jump up and land on my back. You know what I mean? So I just feel we always talk about it. And I wanted to get your take on it too, man, because sometimes you'll tell me stuff or you'll send me messages and I'll sit there and read them. And I'm just crying, laughing, laying in my bed in the dark, just like, oh my God, Paul's fucking going ham on somebody right now. So like, what is your take on the actual environment when you show up to training, whether it was when you were training or if you're running a training session or a seminar, what's your take on the environment around you when these people come in to get this knowledge?
I think to start with, just like my experience was always like, and I mean, it comes from, having the work ethic to become a professional basketball player. And it's, you go to practice, you listen to what the coach has got to say. And it realistically, it might be something that you don't agree with, but you're going to try it out just to go, hey, I'm going to try your way, right? And and see what happens. But for me, it was like, you go to training a couple times a week, and then for me, it was like just trying to get some extra stuff in. So I'd go over there. If training was going on a day I was working, I'd go on my lunch break just to try to get an extra 40 minutes in the ring. Like, I just felt like there was so much knowledge around. You had Mustafa training, you had Brian Brigger. You'd have guys that were, more senior than me at the time, which it could have been just a couple years, but still, it was one of those things where I could go there and I can learn from guys that have, trained before me, had been in, way bigger situations with Mustafa and Brian, being in ECW and WWF. So having the experience was where they could, they could impart their knowledge on you. And maybe it wasn't even getting into the ring. Maybe it was just going over there and listening to them talk, or watching a training session going and listening to them explain why things were happening. Like, that's when you started getting that psychology stuff and understanding. They would always say less is more, and it didn't make sense at the time, but you listen to it and you go, huh, doesn't make sense. But at some point down the road, then you're saying it to other people, like, hey, less is more, man. Let's get as much out of what we're doing as we can. And when it comes to training guys, you just have to expect that respect. Like, come in here, just like you said, this isn't social hour. This is, come in here, and if you want to be a pro wrestler, come in here and put the work in. Do what I'm asking of you. Um, you know, I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I haven't already done myself or wouldn't do myself. Um, so it's just that situation where, um, you know, in most cases you have the guys that are just going to tell you, like, oh man, it's been my dream since I was a kid, and I just want to do this, and I'm going to show it to you. I'm going to prove it to you. Um, those are the guys that normally end up just, being there for a little bit and leaving. But the guys that are just, they come in there and they're quiet and they just are just a sponge absorbing stuff, and, you know, um, give their best effort to everything you're asking them to do, because they trust you. Um, you know, and we talked about how you find a good wrestling school, and you think about resumes, right? For me, it was, Brian showing me the video of him getting his feet lit on fire with Papa Shango in WWF, right? So that's just like, hey, I was there. I'm not just blowing smoke. I was there, and then obviously, seeing the Mustafa stuff, and finding out down the road about all the places that he's been to kind of better himself. So, kind of on that note, obviously you didn't just train with Schizo, right? You talked about going to Iron. You talked about going to All Pro Wrestling. Like, what was your path, and at what point do you think you stopped learning, or when did you stop training? How did that happen?
Well, I mean, we're going to get into that path many, many times in this, but you said a couple things very key to me right now that I think as we're moving along. You said, when did I stop training? That one's funny to me because I've never stopped training. I've never stopped training my entire life, even to this day, at a fresh young, I'm a very young 43 years of age, just a month and a half into this beautiful age of 43, and I've never stopped training. And I get into it with a lot of guys. I've trained a lot of guys, man. And we see these guys still milling around. They're just milling around on the local independent scene, and there's nothing wrong with being on the local independent scene. I love the local independent scene, But when guys start to go, hey, why am I not at a different level in this, in this career path of mine? Because I've trained so many guys that once I said, hey, you're good to go, man. You're good to go. Time to get you on the show, which we're going to touch on a little later about when somebody should start and how they should start. But they get in there and then they just quit training. I got guys that have been in the business that I've trained 15 to 17 years now, who for 15 to 17 years, I've kept my doors open and I've offered them saying, hey man, get back in here and train. Get back. Oh, I don't want to take the bumps. You don't have to take the bumps. Let's just work on the movement. Let's get your pacing around the ring, your ring positioning. Let's go over things and repetition. So when you say when did I stop training and when did I stop learning? I don't know. You're going to have to ask somebody who's somebody else when they stop learning, because I continue to learn. I learned so much from your show last weekend, just sitting with you at the blind onion,
Blind onion.
fucking
Yep.
calling it the blonde onion. I was like, you 18 days on this new diet, and then we're like, oh, let's go out for a cheat day, and then I get the breath batterer or whatever it was called with linguiça and fucking you could squeeze honey all over your shit. I remember I was riding home and I was just like, dude, me and Bad News were like, I mean, we're like, we got a shit. You know what I mean? Like this is gonna be some shit and going on. But I learned a lot at your show. I mean, I saw at the end of a match, I saw a guy laying flat on his back, and I saw the guy lateral press him, and to be a quote unquote turned into a villain, he put his feet on the middle ropes thinking he was going to get more leverage. And I just kept thinking in my head, like, no, if you rolled him up in a schoolboy roll up, for those who don't know what that is, you're packing them tight up on the shoulders, then putting your feet on the middle ropes, putting your feet a little higher on the ropes would increase the weight. So doing that would actually increase your chance of winning with the pinfall. But if you're covering them in a lateral press and you elevate your feet up on the rope, you're actually taking half of your body weight off the guy, making it easier for him to kick out. And we sit here and we talk about that, and it's just this constant process of we're never not learning anymore. And you mentioned psychology, and people go, well, you can't train psychology. And I think people have a completely different understanding of what storytelling and psychology is, because psychology is telling your story, but listening to the audience. So, yes, you can teach somebody psychology. The fans can teach you psychology, because it's this right here. And we hear it so many times in the business. You got to have an ear for the business. You got to have an ear for it. And people go, oh, they say it, but they don't know what the fuck's going on. The crowd starts, hey, they got him. I got him in a chin lock, and the crowd starts making noise, and then they start rising up, and then the crowd stops making noise, and they fight up, or they got the chin lock and they let the noise go, and it's like you lost them, or
Right.
the noise is at its highest peak. That's the psychology of professional wrestling. So, and I want to hear your take on it, but I think that's the beauty of this business and what keeps me going, what keeps you going, what keeps a guy like Luster, definitely what keeps a guy like Boyce, Big Ugly. I mean, these are just people that I'm mentioning that we have been around this business for a long time. What keeps us going is that we don't ever stop training and we don't ever stop learning, man. And psychology is this beautiful thing that anywhere you go, in any different town, any different city, any different country, the fans are going to be different. And your match, if you have an ear for the crowd, is always going to be a different matchup with a different person, because the crowd is going to dictate what you do.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. I guess that was kind of a loaded question that I lobbed the softball for you, so you can take advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. It's like you go to different shows, and there's going to be people that are less experienced, same experienced, more experienced. There's going to be people that have been to places that you haven't been, different parts of the country, and the styles are different, right? So you're going to learn something if you go in with an open mind to any type of scenario there, right? So, and it's always puzzling for me when you have somebody that's gonna go to a show and they go, "Hey, I'm gonna run a seminar before the show," and you have 20 guys booked on the show, and you have 6 people or 10 people show up to the seminar. It's like, this person, regardless of what your skill level is, they're probably gonna say something that triggers something in you or makes you look at a situation differently. Or, I remember for me, like I was in a locker room and Vinny Massaro was talking to Frost about missing something versus hitting something and how it should look exactly the same. Um, and it made me think of a situation where Luster was in a match. Something with like a duck one was called or something like that, and the guy didn't duck, but Luster threw the line like it was going to be it was going to be ducked, right? So it was like bicep to the chin to the guy, and it's like, that's because I throw everything exactly the same. It doesn't matter. The guy's ducking, he's not. I'm going to throw it the same way. And I think the same thing, wrestling Rick. I don't remember. It was something where I was down and I didn't hear if he told me move or not. So I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to stay here because it's not going to be any different. He's gonna throw this move regardless if I'm moving or not, the same way. So it ended up I didn't move. He ended up hitting it just fine. But those are the type of things like that I've kind of learned, that maybe it was told to me. Maybe I was trained to do that, and I, um, you know, looked away for a second and I didn't catch it or whatever. And I think there's going to be some tons of things like that you're in a car ride that someone says something to you and you don't really take notice because it doesn't make sense or something like that at the time. But so many situations where I'll do something and it doesn't matter, 10 years in, 15 years in, 20 years in, somebody will say something to me. I always like to take it seriously, right? Can I fit that into what I do? Can I adapt what they're asking me to do into the way that I do my things? Is the way that they're telling me to do something better, right? You have to have no ego when it comes to that, right? You can't think that you know it all the time. So you go to these seminars, you see some guys that have been around for a while that don't take part. They're just standing on the outside, and it's always like, you want to just ask them that question, and most of the time I do just go, oh, so obviously you can't learn anything here, right? And then obviously it pisses you off when it's like the guy seriously thinks he can't learn anything more. So, oh, no, 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 I'm good, man. I'm already trained. You talked about when your original trainer kind of gives you the blessing, like, all right, you're cool, man. You can go out and start working. Um, and then some guys are going to be like you and I and continue to train, try to get better, try to learn. And some guys are going to be like, all right, cool, man. I'm done training. I don't have to go anymore. I'm just going to go out and wrestle, right? And then you have these guys that they're on that same level, right? Never get better. Probably
Yeah.
sometimes start getting worse, right? So
Well,
yeah, we think about that. I'm sure
well,
you look like you're getting triggered right there.
well,
Oh, I
they,
know 100 guys
well,
like
I'm
this.
listening to you, man. I'm listening to you because I could listen to you all day, brother. That is the thing. Like the best advice I could give to somebody, man. And this is my best advice. And a lot of people are going to look at it and they're going to go, "What the fuck is he talking about?" And it's if I tell you to go watch Steamboat and Flair, whatever one I tell you to watch, Michaels, Taker, fucking whoever. If I tell you to go watch a good match, I don't want you to look at the moves. I don't want you to try to watch the format. What I want you to do is I want you to turn your TV as loud as you can or your phone, and I want you to watch when the audience starts making the noise, when they start participating. What does Flair and Steamboat do? Watch how they move, watch how they rise up, watch when they come back down. Watch at all these pivotal points of the match. The shine, the cutoff, the heat. I mean, all this stuff that everybody wants to talk about, this format, which you can finagle the format so many different ways off of what the crowd's doing. Like times on matches are, I get that you got to have times, but I rode in the car with Al Snow one time and he said, "Hey, do you put times on your matches?" We were coming back from the Bay Area to fucking Orville. And he said, "Do you put times on your matches?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Stupid." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, because you don't know. You could give somebody 15 to 20 minutes, and 7 minutes into the contest, the crowd can be as hot as they're going to be and ready for this thing to go home and explode. They're going to explode if you go home after 7 minutes. And what if you go backstage and the promoter's like, I told you I needed 15 or 20. Well, if I would have gone 15 or 20, like your designated mark ass time you gave me, then we would have lost these people. I gave you what I heard through my ear. And if that's a problem, then it's a problem that I'm going to be working for you here because you don't understand what's going on out here. Sometimes you have to speed things up, and sometimes, and it goes the other way too, because sometimes you could have 8 to 10 minutes they give you, say, hey, you got 10 minutes out here, but you get out there and the crowd's so into what you're doing, or they want more in the contest, is you end up going 20 minutes. So sometimes somebody else is going to have their time cut down, or somebody else on the card is going to be asked to go a little bit longer. You know what I'm saying? Because we get in these situations where we go to these shows and we train, and you said it best. If I'm in a car with somebody and they're listening to music, if we have a carload of wrestlers and somebody wants to listen to the newest Drake or the newest Young Loke, Young Gotti, Young Pistol Whip, whatever his name, if they want to listen to music and not talk about pro wrestling for however long this destination is that we're going to, then I'm in the wrong car. I don't listen to music. We just came up to Reno and it was nonstop wrestling talk the entire way up there. And it's not just me talking. That's the problem, I think, too. Like, I think as we have more what they say, quote unquote, experience, I think people think everybody needs to shut the fuck up and listen to this one guy talk. No, that's not the case. I think a good mentor, a good coach is going to bring up a valuable topic, and then we can go around the car and just let it, it's like I'm in my recovery right now, but it would be like, hey, look at this. I got a bottle of Jack Daniels. I'm going to initiate, go, go, go. Here you go. And he goes, oh, me too. And you pass it around. You know what I mean? So that's where it starts. You create the topic of, hey, what do you think of this? What would you do in this situation? And you work your way around the car and you let everybody talk about it. And I think in talking about things, it's it's as we go, man. We learn this stuff as we go, just like in the ring. This stuff is being done as we go. A true artist, and that's the beauty of the art of pro wrestling, is as we go. So as we're training guys, I know you're big on it too, but we're going to teach them, how to bump. We're going to teach them how to roll. We got a format. Hey man, here's how you run the ropes, so if they snap, you don't fucking grab a concussion and kill yourself. Here's how you hit the corners. Okay, so this guy's learning this stuff now. All right, we're going to teach you how to sell. I'm going to teach you how to move around the ring and keep coming back to me, so I'm not picking up a lump of shit or chasing him all over the ring. Because I just saw a situation. I learned, like I said, I learned so much even this last weekend. I mean, there was a squash match that was supposed to happen, and it was anything but a squash match. And as we were sitting down with the guy, the kid who wasn't even ready to be in the ring, but I asked him, I said, hey man, I said, do you know what a squash match is? And the veteran wrestler felt bad doing the squash match. The veteran wrestler, he's a great worker, but he literally, and we should have known, because he was like, oh, I don't want to step on any toes. So he was real adamant about kicking the shit out of somebody. And I think the squash match is just, it's a lost art, man. But I heard the kid say something, because they went for like a crucifix, which the kid never should have gone for a crucifix in the squash match. But the kid said, yeah, I misheard him and we messed up the spot. And I said, excuse me. You were right there. I said, excuse me. I said, you messed up the what? The spot. I said, did you plan out your squash match? That wasn't a squash match. But I said, did you plan? He said, oh yeah, we talked about the whole thing in the back and we had it planned out. I said, I don't ever want to hear that again. The idea that someone said we missed a couple spots in our squash match, just like I got this sick feeling in my stomach, man. The hair started, I was like, oh, I just wanted to grab this kid and bounce his head off the table a few times because I'm like, what happened to the art form of going out there? And it's an example of I have Rayshawn. Or Rayshawn could go out there and he could put the whole damn match together himself. And sometimes you got to tell the kid, hey, calm down, man. Let's sequence this out. Your memory is way better than my old ass memories. I remember wrestling Kenny K, and Kenny's just super athletic and all over the place. And he was just like bam, 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 throwing all this stuff at me. And I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, hey, bro, I ain't gonna remember all that shit. I'll remember that and I'll remember this. And when it comes up, if it's the right time in the match, we'll add it in as a sequence. But then you got this kid, we got Richard Dakin, Dickie Dakin, and that kid's memory, he forgets his name after 10 minutes. You know what I mean? So that kid's not going to be able to go in the ring and remember a bunch of shit. But that kid can get in the ring and he can wrestle and know he's going to out wrestle the heel till he gets cut off. And then he knows he's going to listen to the audience. So I think one of the biggest things about what you were talking about is when you get in the car with somebody, and I want to hear from you, man. I want to hear from you, and I don't just want to hear from you like, hey, I'm giving you a Paul opinion. I want to hear that passionate Paul that tells me all the time. When you get around somebody that doesn't know shit and you know they don't know shit, but they refuse to even listen to what you're saying, how do you feel? Because you just saw me, man. I get really passionate. I'm really passionate about what we do. So what do you do in that situation? Whether it's a car, we're eating afterwards, we're in the locker room as a promoter. What do you do in that situation when you know the guy is just doesn't give a shit?
I mean, I guess I look back at the times that, like, in the car with Mustafa, right, and how passionate he was, and and I think I got a lot from that, just listening to what he had to say, and like you say, like giving your input, and then having him go, you're stupid as fuck, man. This is what you need to do. You don't understand, and kind of giving you the business, like, hey, you need to pay attention to what I'm saying. Go out there and do what I'm asking you to do. And he was always the biggest proponent about protecting my size and things like that. So I think when I get in that in the car and you got people that are they want to listen to music and all that stuff, it's like you start getting irritated because this business that you cherish, right? And you want it to get better, and you realize these guys are listening to music. They could give two shits about what's going on in their wrestling match, right? They're way more excited to tell you that they're a pro wrestler than have you come to the show and watch them put on a really good match, right? So and unfortunately, that's kind of what it's coming to, and I think that's part of what we're trying to accomplish here is we're trying to reset this a little bit and kind of get it back to where it was, where guys are telling stories rather than going, hey, I saw this match online, and trying to emulate it move for move. You have so many situations where you think that there's going to be a story told, and then all of a sudden things are just like, you know, here, I'll give you three moves, you give me three moves. And it's like, yeah, you know what? You know why you're doing that is because you're not paying attention when somebody who knows more than you is talking, right? Because you want to have this ego about, oh, I'm already trained. I can do it myself. I know what's going on. Or in a lot of cases, you got, people that have gone somewhere else, right? And I'm thinking, now that I think about things like this, it's, you go somewhere else because you want to be able to tell someone, hey, I trained with this big name school, right? It's not because you're going to go there and you're going to give your full attention to trying to get better. It's you want something else to throw on your resume.
Mhm.
And I just think that that's like, you know, it's worthless. You go there and you go, hey, I trained at this school with Seth Rollins, or I went to a school and I trained, with a development, WWE developmental system, or I went to the Harley race camp. And for me, it was like I'm going to go to a different part of the country, and they wrestle completely different, and I'm trying to learn what they do there, right? Rather than just going, hey, if I go to the Harley race camp, I can put that on my resume and I can tell people, oh, I trained at this place, and that's going to help me get booked somewhere else because I want to add more matches, to my big number, rather than going, hey, I wrestled, 8 quality matches this month. People want to go, hey, I got 16 matches in this month. A bunch of dog shit guys I wrestled, guys that don't know what they're doing, or you go in there and you wrestle a guy that looks like you picked them up from high school, and hey, brother, let's come in the ring, man. Here, put on these Under Armour compression pants, and throw some of these knee pads on, and here's a set of boxing boots. Now you look like a pro wrestler. Here, wear this T-shirt too. So I don't know, man. It definitely gets frustrating, and obviously the conversations that we have um, goes way deeper than just frustration. It goes to the point of being pissed off, and I want to grab someone. You know, I want to grab someone and shake the shit out of them, and
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah.
so it's just you know you look at kind of where we came from and the guys that we worked with, and my story of starting, right. You go in there and you see guys that are in shape, they're big, you can tell they go to the gym, they look legit, they look like they can kick the shit out of you, right. Like, I don't want to run into this guy in a dark alley,
Mhm.
the typical cliche, right? I don't want to run into this guy in a dark alley. And I think it's that thing, right? We lack believability because everything is so choreographed, right? Oh, we're gonna go out and choreograph this whole match, and it's gonna look like we're dancing, and everything's so smooth, and then you're like, hey, I've never seen a fight that looks like that. That looks like to borrow a term from Rip Rogers, phony wrestling, you know.
Men's
So
cheerleading.
it's just it's
Men's
definitely
cheerleading.
so
In
just
sync
frustrating.
men's cheerleading. Well, that's what I was going to ask you too when we talk about that. Is I know when I come up there, you always grace me with my favorite spot on the card, the old starter spot, the old number one, the old leadoff hitter. And I love that because I get a chance after I'm done to get out of my stuff and come out and sit with you and watch the rest of the show. And if there's a monitor back there, we can, I'm at the monitor. And it's like over 25 years of doing this. And that's what I'm looking for as a promoter too. I'm not just looking for someone who's on time and gives a shit. I'm looking for someone that's actually gonna watch what's going on. And I keep bringing up this last weekend because you're only as good as your last match. You're only as good as your last show promoted. And in my match, they did a atomic drop, an inverted atomic drop. Tackled me, and then they're like, "That's." And I was like, "I'll get to the ropes, put me over." And I remember I hadn't seen an inverted atomic drop and an atomic drop in indie wrestling in a while.
Right. So it's like, hey, this is cool. These guys are coming up with this spot, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, man, I haven't seen that in a while. Let's do that, man. I think we
And then
can.
what happened? And then what happened?
And then it happened 2 more times in the same show.
Yeah, because they ain't watching. Nobody's
Right,
watching. They're just not
right,
watching what's going on. And it's,
right.
I was on the floor selling and we talked about this and I thought it was funny because I hadn't seen Adam in a while. As we're getting close to this 50-minute mark, I'm keeping my eye on it, but I hadn't seen Adam in a while, man. And Adam's one of the guys that really drove me to be better because we both had the frog splash. We both had the super kick. He ended up doing the double stomp and the double stomp and the curb stomp, and I just remember he was leaving and I was selling on the ground after I got lined over the top, and the audience didn't see nothing, but I'm selling. And he leaves that area with you, and I look up at him, and we're 50 feet away from each other, and he's going, "Hey man, I gotta go." He's mouthing, "I gotta go," and I look up at him, and I'm like, and then I'm kind of like, huh. And he goes, "I know." And then he throws it up, and I kind of under my hand like throw it up to him. And while I'm selling, me and this guy, without even talking to each other, 50 feet away as he's leaving the building, have this full blown mouthed conversation. And I think about it today, and I'm like, nowadays when I go to these shows, nobody's even looking at the audience. And we keep telling these guys, we go, "Hey man, like you got to play the crowd more." Because the whole purpose of that, getting the baby face over, is the baby face needs sympathy. And the heel needs heat. And the heat draws the money, and the heat on the baby face creates the sympathy, which makes the audience want to get behind whoever that baby face is. So you could have and I always like to say, you could have a shit heel, but a great baby face. And all you got is a great baby face digging for the crowd and pulling himself up the ropes, and the audience don't give a shit because the heel didn't do his job of getting enough heat. And you could flip that around. You could have an amazing heel who's getting enough heat and putting that sympathy on the baby face, and the baby face doesn't know how to, fire up and pull himself up at the right times off that sympathy. And then you can have a dog shit referee. So if you don't have a good heel, and you don't have to be experienced, but a good baby that understands he's got to sell and fight back up and not die. And my favorite's when you have a shit heel, a shit baby face, a shit ref, and then to throw things even, I mean, this is like a dream for me. And me and Adam used to rush to the curtain to fight for that little peak spot to watch. So you got those three elements of shit, and then you add in a shit manager. Now that is why I live in this business, to run up to that curtain and go, these guys are going to go out here and they are going to completely ignore the crowd, which for the fucking life of me, I don't understand how people, because when we were in this pandemic, people were doing shows in front of no fans, and everybody, that was the main complaint online, social media blowing everyone like, "This wrestling in front of no fan stuff sucks." Okay, well, we brought the fans back. You ignored them before the pandemic. So I thought maybe wrestling in front of no fans actually might have opened your fucking eyes. And then now we come back from the pandemic and they come out there and they're just like, but you know what when they do notice the audience, they notice the audience on their entrance, which I know for a fact that these guys are going home, whether they have wives, kids, girlfriends, whatever, live with their parents in the basement. And that's the old cliche. I know they're going home and they're hitting their entrance music on the boom box or the old jukebox, and they're putting their gear on and they're walking through their house to a mirror going, because man, they get it when they're coming to the ring. That entrance is solid, bro, to the T. They know when to hop up on the apron. They know right when that beat of that song is going to hit to throw their arms up to the crowd or do their little shimmy, whatever they've been working on. And then it happens. As Larry would say, ring the bell. And once that bell gets rung, these guys feel like Mick Foley and The Rock on the Super Bowl weekend halftime show. We are in an empty arena match. We are back in the pandemic, and these fans that poured out overpriced $25 to $30 sometimes. Like sometimes I see the ticket prices on shows, and then I look at the card and I go, "Oh, bro, inflation, right? The cost of gas going up, the cost of food, the cost of living and property tax. Might as well make the cost of these wrestling tickets go up too. So these poor individuals that are going to get fucking ignored for 3, 4, 5 fucking, if you're AEW, 7 to 8 hours, let's do a wrestling show where it's an entire work shift with a little bit of overtime. You know what I mean? So we got about 5 here, Paul. there's so much more to talk about this. When we started, I was like, dude, are we going to be able to even talk for 30 minutes about
Right.
something?
Of course, we always can. We always every phone conversation it ends up over an hour, and we're like, "Hey, dude, dude, I got to get back to my regular life." Like we got to get back to things. But I guess it's kind of a great prelude, right? This is going to come out the beginning of December, right? You guys have something going on in the middle of December, right? What do you guys got going on in the middle of December?
Well, barring the rain, and I'm praying, my higher power, December 14th, right here on Plumas Street in town. It's the Christmas stroll. I go every year, and this is my first time being able to wrestle for it, or put on a promote an event. The city's going to pay for it, and we're going to be under the lights, and I got a good cast of guys, man, that are going to be there. So it's going to be really beneficial for the school, Primetime University. It's going to be really beneficial because in March we're coming back to an old building here in town that has had many PCW shows since 2000. It was called the Pepsi Arena, Champions Indoor Soccer Arena, and now it's been bought and remodeled and everything. So I'm really excited about that. And I know you got a lot of stuff coming up in 2025. I know we got a lot of stuff coming up in 2025. What really impresses me the most is that we were able to lock all of our dates down for 2025, and you were able to lock all your dates down for 2025. And we were able to get those to the guys and correlate everything. So, I mean, not only are we going to be busy, you're going to be busy. So in turn, you're going to be busy because now you've been doing commentary with us. And if we don't get to see Big Paul back in a PCW ring in 2025, then the entire wrestling world is a damn sham. I mean, I'm out here 43 still cooking. I don't know how ugly is. I know he's over 50. He's out there still cooking. He's out there still bleeding all over the fucking place. And he's still doing the damn thing. Boyce LeGrand is 49, going to be 50 doing the damn thing. I don't know how old Luster is. I know he's about the same age as me. But I mean, Luster the Legend's still cooking. The Mexican Werewolf Chupacabra's still cooking. I haven't mentioned him this show at all. But my best friend, wrestling personified Rick Luxury, you mentioned him one time. He's still out there cooking, man. So, well, I remember the Modestes and the Morgans and those guys, when they got about 40 years of age, they were done.
Right.
You'd see them here and there. So we are well past what we've been doing. Like a 99 is when I came in. So I got to wrestle the last half of the last year of the 90s. So that's a decade, then 2000, then the 2010s, then the 2020s now. So technically I've been wrestling in 4 different decades, which is really fucking cool, man. And it's not about us anymore, but damn it, if I can still get out there and do a little bit, I'm going to still get out there and do a little bit to help some of these guys and put them over and get them where they need to be. So that independent wrestling in Northern California is alive and well, man.
That's it, man. So I guess to kind of close this out, you're going to have another class starting in January, right?
Yes.
And then we are also going to start a new class in January, probably about the same time. So the hopes are we started off talking about wrestling schools, and hopefully the hopes are you're going to have a bunch of guys hungry, wanting to get into this wrestling business. I'm going to have a bunch of guys hungry, ready to get into the wrestling business. And in the near future, we are going to have some hopefully young guys to kind of take over and take the business back to where we remember it being and how great it was back when. So, man, I just hoping that happens, right?
And I'm coming your way. I'm coming your way. That was funny because you were sitting there with all the guys and you were like, yeah, you come down and train with Zack down here on Thursdays and Sundays. And then Zack's going to come up here and train with us. And I'm standing there. I'm like, hell yeah, I am. And then you called me the next day and you're like, I want you to chew on this for a minute because you kind of didn't balk at it at all. You're like,
Right.
were you
You
interested
didn't,
in
you
coming down here?
didn't blink your eyes at all. So I was
No,
like, yeah, man,
because
we're
I'm
gonna do
coming.
this.
I'm
All
coming
right.
your way, man. I'm gonna help you. You're gonna help me, and we're gonna go around and we're gonna help everybody. This has been going over, and this is the first episode. We're gonna add a lot of new stuff to this. We're gonna start showing matches, and here pretty soon after episodes, Paul, we're gonna start bringing guests on the show. We're gonna have a third fucking screen here. I'm gonna have a better studio. Hopefully, these damn things are gonna be working a little better. But I think I look pretty cool in them, so everyone else can just kiss my ass if they don't. Wrestling's a work, right?
That's it, man. All right, buddy. It was good talking to you. Till the next time.
Yes, sir, Paul. Closing out.